Imagine sitting under the twinkling lights of a 12-foot Christmas tree, watching the man you've loved for 10 years reach for a box wrapped in velvet and gold. He thinks it's the vintage Rolex he's been begging for all year. His mother is filming on her phone, his sister is clapping. He looks at me with those lying eyes and says, "Thank you, honey." But I knew something they didn't. I knew that inside that beautiful box wasn't a watch. It was the end of his life as he knew it. He thought he could book a hotel room with his secretary 3 days before Christmas and I wouldn't find out? He thought I was just a clueless, stay-at-home wife? Oh no, I didn't just get mad, I got even. And I made sure his entire family had a front row seat to his destruction. Here is how I ruined his life on Christmas morning. It was December 20th, the kind of day that is supposed to be filled with the smell of cinnamon and the sound of wrapping paper crinkling. But for me, it will forever be the day the world stopped turning because everything was perfect, truly perfect, with the house decorated like a magazine spread and the turkey ordered and the in-laws scheduled to arrive in 48 hours. And my husband, David, was the center of it all. The man who I thought hung the moon and the stars, the man who was currently in the shower washing off the gym sweat that I would later learn wasn't from the gym at all. I was in the bedroom folding his laundry, just doing the mundane tasks of a wife who trusts her partner implicitly, when his phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up the dim room with a harsh white glow that caught my eye not because I was snooping, but because it vibrated so aggressively against the wood. And usually David is glued to that phone, guarding it like a state secret, but he had forgotten it. A slip-up, a fatal error in his otherwise meticulously curated life of lies. I walked over to it, intending to just move it or maybe glance at the time, but the preview message was right there, staring at me, mocking me. A message from a number saved simply as M that read, "I miss you already. Are you sure you can't get away for an hour on Christmas Eve? My bed feels empty without you." The air left my lungs as if I had been punched in the gut, a physical blow that bent me double. And my first instinct was to scream, to kick down the bathroom door and demand an answer, to throw the phone at his head and watch it shatter. But then I heard the water turn off and the shower curtain slide back, and a cold, icy calm washed over me. A survival instinct I didn't know I possessed, because if I screamed now, he would lie, he would gaslight me, he would say it was a spam number or a prank or a wrong number, and I would be the crazy, jealous wife ruining Christmas. So instead of screaming, I memorized the passcode I had seen him type in 1,000 times, I unlocked the phone with trembling fingers, and I didn't just look, I investigated. I went through everything in the span of 3 minutes, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, scrolling back through months of messages, photos that made me want to vomit, plans for a business trip in January that was actually a couples retreat, and receipts for jewelry I never received. And the worst part was the way he talked about me, telling her I was boring, that I was suffocating, that he was only staying for the holidays to keep up appearances. And as I heard the bathroom doorknob turn, I gently placed the phone back exactly where it was, took a deep breath, and forced a smile onto my face that didn't reach my dead eyes. Because right then and there, standing on the plush carpet of our master bedroom, I decided that David wasn't going to get a confrontation. He was going to get a performance, and his grand finale would be on Christmas morning. The next 3 days were an exercise in psychological torture, a masterclass in deception, where I had to play the role of the doting, excited wife while every fiber of my being wanted to set his wardrobe on fire. But I knew I needed to be strategic because revenge is a dish best served cold, and in this case, wrapped in gold foil and tied with a silk ribbon. I started by gathering the evidence, not just screenshots, but hard copies, tangible proof that couldn't be deleted or explained away. So I waited until he left for work the next morning, claiming he had a crisis at the office, which I now knew was a breakfast date with M, who turned out to be the new marketing intern, a girl young enough to be his daughter. And while he was gone, I went to work. I accessed our shared bank accounts and printed the statements highlighting every dinner, every hotel stay, every flower delivery that wasn't for me, totaling thousands of dollars of our savings spent on his infidelity while he told me we needed to be budget conscious this year. And then I went to the cloud, the family cloud he thought I was too tech illiterate to navigate, and I found the photos, the selfies of them in our car, in our vacation home, even one taken in our kitchen while I was visiting my mother, and I printed them all on high-gloss photo paper at the 24-hour pharmacy, standing there under the fluorescent lights while the clerk looked at me with pity. But I didn't want pity, I wanted ammunition. I bought a box, a beautiful, sturdy box meant for luxury boots or a heavy coat, and I began to fill it, layering the evidence like a lasagna of betrayal, starting with the bank statements at the bottom, then the text logs I had downloaded, then the photos, and right on top, I placed the pièce de résistance, the divorce papers I had express drafted by my sister's lawyer husband, who did it pro bono the moment I told him what David had done. I wrapped the box with the most expensive paper I could find, a deep crimson red that looked like blood under the tree lights, and I tied it with a gold bow that was so intricate it would take time to undo, time for the suspense to build, time for everyone to watch him struggle to open his own doom. When David came home that night, smelling faintly of a perfume that wasn't mine, I kissed his cheek and told him I had found him the perfect gift, something he had been wanting for a long time. And I watched his ego swell, watched him preen like a peacock, thinking he had gotten away with it, thinking he was the smartest man in the room. And he actually had the audacity to say, "You didn't have to spend too much, honey." And I just smiled and said, "Oh, don't worry, David. It costs me everything, but it's worth it." And he just laughed, completely missing the dagger hidden in my words, oblivious to the fact that the perfect wife he was ignoring was currently plotting his absolute social and financial destruction. Christmas Eve arrived with the blanket of snow and a house full of people, the air thick with the scent of roasting ham and the tension that only I could feel, vibrating under my skin like a live wire as David's parents, Margaret and Bill, sat on our sofa judging the appetizers and asking when we were going to give them grandchildren, a question that usually stung but now just felt like a bullet I had dodged. David was in rare form, playing the host, pouring drinks, laughing too loud, checking his phone every 5 minutes under the table, and I knew she was texting him. I knew M was sending him Merry Christmas nudes or demanding attention, and every time he smiled at his phone, a little piece of my soul hardened into diamond. The dinner was agonizing, sitting there listening to his mother praise him for being such a good provider, for working so hard, for being the pillar of the family, while I sat there pushing peas around my plate, knowing that the pillar was rotten and crumbling, and at one point David put his hand on my thigh under the table, a possessive, performative gesture meant to show his parents how happy we were, and it took every ounce of willpower not to stab his hand with my fork, but I just placed my hand over his and squeezed, digging my nails in just enough to make him flinch, a tiny warning shot he didn't understand. We moved to the living room for coffee and carols, and the tree was glowing in the corner, the pile of gifts spilling out onto the rug, and there it was, the red box, sitting front and center, calling to me, pulsing with its dark energy, and David noticed it too, his eyes lighting up with greed. "That's a big one," he joked, winking at his dad. "I must have been very good this year." And the room laughed, his mother chuckled, his sister rolled her eyes affectionately, and I laughed too, a dry, brittle sound, saying, "You have no idea, David, you've been spectacular." And the irony hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. As the night wound down and the guests went to the guest rooms, David tried to initiate intimacy, trying to kiss my neck as I took off my makeup, and I pulled away, pleading a headache, the classic excuse. But tonight it was the truth. My head was pounding with the pressure of the secret, with the adrenaline of the impending execution, and as he rolled over and fell asleep within minutes, snoring softly, the sleep of the guilty and the arrogant, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, rehearsing my lines,
visualizing the look on his face, wondering if his mother would faint, wondering if he would cry or scream, and realizing that for the first time in days, I wasn't sad anymore. I was excited. I was a hunter waiting in the blind, and sunrise couldn't come fast enough. Morning broke with a blinding winter sun, and the ritual began. The coffee brewing, the cinnamon rolls in the oven, the family gathering in their matching pajamas, mine crisp and new, David's rumpled, and everyone took their places in the living room, the circle of judgment, with David sitting in the armchair like a king on his throne. We went through the small gifts first, the socks, the books, the polite thank yous, the tension ratcheting up with every torn piece of paper, until finally it was the only box left, the red one, the heavy one, and the room went quiet, sensing the gravity of the moment. "Go on, son," his father said. "Open the big one." And David rubbed his hands together, grinning at me. "You really outdid yourself, babe," he said. And I stood up, moving to the fireplace, needing to be standing for this, needing to be above him. "I wanted to get you something that represented who you really are," I said, my voice steady, surprisingly strong. "Something that shows everyone exactly what you've been doing this year." And he looked confused for a split second, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. But greed took over, and he pulled the gold ribbon, the knot coming undone with a soft hiss of silk. He tore the paper, revealing the plain white box underneath, and he lifted the lid, expecting a watch, expecting keys to a car, expecting a gaming console. But instead, he saw paper. Just stacks of paper, and his brow furrowed, his smile faltering as he reached in and pulled out the top sheet, the laminate gleaming in the Christmas lights. It was the photo of him and M kissing in a hotel bar, date stamped 3 days ago. The silence that fell over the room was absolute, a vacuum where sound used to exist, and I watched the color drain from his face, turning him a sickly shade of gray as he dropped the photo and frantically dug deeper, pulling out the text logs, the ones where he called his mother an old bat. I made sure those were on top for her to see. The ones where he mocked his sister's weight, and the ones where he described his affair in graphic detail. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling, not looking at me, staring at the box like it was a bomb. And his mother leaned forward, snatching the photo from the floor, and I heard her gasp, a wet, choking sound. "David," she asked, her voice shattering, "who is this?" And he tried to stammer, tried to say it was a joke, a prank, but I stepped forward, cutting him off. "It's his mistress, Margaret," I said, loud and clear. "The one he spent our savings on, the one he was with on Tuesday when he said he was working. And underneath that, David, is your real gift." He looked back into the box and pulled out the final document, the thick bundle of legal papers clipped together. "I'm leaving you," I said. "The house is in my name, remember? My parents bought it. You have 1 hour to pack a bag and get out. You can go to her. I'm sure her bed isn't as empty as she said." He looked up at me then, tears streaming down his face, realizing the extent of his ruin, realizing his parents were looking at him with disgust, that his life was incinerated, and he opened his mouth to beg, to plead, but I just pointed to the door. "Merry Christmas, David," I said, and I turned around, walked into the kitchen, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, and listened to the beautiful sound of him crying while his mother screamed at him to explain himself, savoring the best gift I had ever given myself, my freedom.